The Fyrún saga continues. In this video, I'll be picking up right where my last video left off, as it set the stage introducing the main cast of characters and conflict, whereas this one will expand upon all of that, exploring more of rival factions Team Brain and Team Brawn, their members, turf war, and the events that led both you and your childhood best friend to join these opposing teams. Since these hypothetical games would be open world, I'll be jumping around quite a bit in this video to key moments between these two factions, but we'll take a closer look at the locations they take place in, where they're inspired by in Iceland, as well as the Pokemon that reside there. Swooping back to some of the other locations and their Pokemon, and more importantly, all of the gym leaders in my next video. As this is just the beginning of the epic journey through the Fyrún region. A fantastical place with a variety of diverse and breathtaking landscapes, each housing magical and mighty creatures known as Pokemon, wielded by fierce warriors known as Pokemon trainers. Over the next several videos on my YouTube channel, I plan to take you on an epic adventure through my imagination, as I'll fully explore the sagas of the Fyrún region just as they would unfold in its conceptual games Pokémon Brain and Pokémon Brawn, introducing all of the characters you'd encounter on your journey and their Pokémon teams, including some familiar faces from all over the Pokémon world. But first, you must select the starter Pokémon that will be accompanying you on your quest. You have the Grass Cub Berry, the Fire Pony Faloga, and the Bubble Crab Crabub. So which of these three will be your secret weapon in the Fyrún region? I've been exploring the Fyrún region in an ongoing series here on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram page at Mykelmon_regions, commissioning a variety of talented artists to help bring all of my ideas and designs to life, and take you on an exciting journey through my imagination in my own little corner of the Pokemon world inspired by Iceland and Norse mythology. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you'd like to learn even more about the Fyrún region, make sure to check out some of my previous videos and subscribe to my channel for even more Fakemon content, as the Fyrún region is only the tip of the iceberg. Earlier in the game, and in my last video, your mother, Professor Aspen, and her friend, the Dark-type specialist and Elite Four member, Isaac, who acts as your mentor, both warned you of the current turf war being waged by rival groups Team Brain and Team Brawn. And despite their young appearance, they double both as misfits and a legit evil team in the form of a cult of impressionable teenagers that worship and blindly serve a manipulative divine Pokemon in search of power and praise. Only acting as mere pawns in the turf war between these respective deities plans to conquer the Fyrún region. And now that the region's champion, who's commanded by his own divine Pokemon, is growing weaker by the day with age, they are set on building their own army of fierce Pokemon trainers to overthrow Champion Odin and his divine Pokemon Edlodin, and gain control over the Fyrún region. And unlike any other evil team in Pokemon, these teams are unique as, once again, you actually join one of these teams, being determined by the version you pick, and then go to war with the other team. Which is why the titles match those of the teams, as that's pretty much the main premise of these conceptual games, as you try to complete your team's objectives, recruit new members, and work your way up the ranks alongside your childhood best friend who is a member of the rival team. So this will create a big wedge between you two, putting your long friendship to the ultimate test as you're each caught in the crossfire of this high-stakes turf war for the Fyrún region. But before we continue and explore the events of these games and all of these team members' Pokemon teams and the battles you'd have with them throughout the region, I really quickly wanted to get into the inspirations and the designs of the grunts of both of these groups. I wanted to make both groups look young because both you and your best friend turned rival are supposed to be 16 years old, and as you know, you both end up joining these groups. So I needed the members of these groups to be around the same age, since you'll both be climbing the ranks and eventually commanding them. So because of this, I felt having them be too much older than you would feel a little weird. Let's be real, no one is going to take orders from someone half their age. Plus, the fact that these groups are made up of young and impressionable teenagers people don't take serious is a vital part of the story, because the truth is, these groups are both merely pawns or soldiers of the divine Pokemon they worship. Unaware of what's really at stake, they're being manipulated. So this war and the divine Pokemon's motives are a lot more serious than most people think. And hiding their agenda under the guise of a group of misguided teenagers is the perfect way to exact their plans unnoticed, with the only people who really know what's really going on being the members of the Fyrún League, only because Champion Odin's own divine Pokemon, Edlodin, is omniscient and knows what's what. So the two divine Pokemon leading these two teams are hoping that most people won't take these factions serious until it's too late. So if you think they don't look all that threatening, that's kind of the point. However, given what's really at stake, they're still more serious and menacing than some of the more recent groups like Team Skull, who were just hooligans, Team Yell, who were just glorified cheerleaders, and Team Star, who were just bullied school students. As far as their designs go, both groups are obviously wearing outfits featuring their team's color and logo. I chose to make the members of each group look like either your stereotypical geek or jock, as I wanted each group's identity and concepts to be as clear as possible. Therefore, Team Brain is dressed more dapper in more traditional school uniforms, while Team Brawn is in more athletic sportswear. I am completely aware these are outdated stereotypes, but Pokemon and other forms of media often continue to play them up, only for the sake of recognition. As a character designer, you sometimes have to make these calls or play into stereotypes to make your concepts as clear as possible. In cases like this, cliches aren't always a bad thing. Team Brain is a group of the region's top scholars devoted to worshipping the divine trickster Pokemon Illruse, inspired none other than the Norse god of mischief himself, Loki, with serpent-like features to reference Loki's association with snakes and sneaky snake-like nature. The Team Brain logo is even a take on Loki's Viking symbol, which includes snakes. Specializing in psychic types and special attacks, Team Brain believes that intellect and strategy triumphs over brute strength. If you pick the path of Pokemon Brain, you will have the privilege of becoming a valued member of Team Brain and eventually even an admin. If you pick the path of Pokemon Brawn, you will have the unfortunate challenge of opposing the brilliant minds of Team Brain. Now as for Team Brawn, they are a group of the region's top athletes devoted to worshipping the mighty warrior Pokemon, Sthormur, inspired none other than the god of thunder himself, Thor, with goat-like features to reference Thor's two flying goats in Norse mythology. You know, the ones that wouldn't shut up during the movie Love and Thunder. Anyways, like the Team Brain logo, the Team Brawn logo is also a take on Thor's Viking symbol, as it's shaped like his hammer, with the inclusion of Sthormur's more goat-like features. Specializing in fighting types and physical attacks, Team Brawn uses brute strength and stamina as their secret weapon. If you pick the path of Pokemon Brawn, you will have the privilege of becoming a valued member of Team Brawn and eventually even an admin, just like in the other team. Whereas if you pick the path of Pokemon Brain, you will have the unfortunate challenge of opposing the raw power of Team Brawn. So good luck with that. I did want to specify that even though these groups are grunts, specialize in certain types, as I mentioned, they more so specialize in either special or physical attacks, so they do not exclusively use psychic or fighting type Pokemon. Those are just a lot more common, and they always feature at least one in their team. But there will be a couple of exceptions throughout your journey, just to keep you on your toes. Also, before we move on, I wanted to give a quick shout out to my good friend, the phenomenally talented artist, Trainer Matt, who I commissioned to draw all of these characters and Forge Form weapons featured in this video. And of course, please make sure to go check out and support all of the other amazing artists that I commissioned to bring all of my Fakemon to life, many of which will be making appearances throughout this video, as I get into each trainer's Pokemon team. The links to all of their pages can be found in the description below, so please go give them some love. Now I'd like to pick up right where we left off in the story of the last video. So let's get into it. You just had your battle with your rival in New Bloom Fields, and after suffering yet another humiliating defeat, they promised to get stronger. This is what will end up leading them to join either Team Brain or Team Brawn, depending on the version you selected, as they are quite competitive, and had previously had their first encounter with their group as you did your own, planting the seeds for these developments, which will sprout in this very video. Speaking of which, make sure to catch some of the grass-type Pokemon exclusive to New Bloom Fields before continuing on. You're then gonna have to cut down to the neighboring town inspired by the town of Selfoss in Iceland, which, like Selfoss, has its own waterfall. The only difference is I decided to build this town around its waterfall, as a lot of Pokemon locations are always over-exaggerated and are a little bit more magical than their real-life counterparts. So I always try to do this sort of thing with a handful of my locations. It's also important to note that Pokemon locations don't usually always line up with the real-world locations on a map. They kind of spread them out and do their own thing, and for the most part I try to do the same, depending on how I want to structure my region's story and Pokedex. Anyways, this is where you'll encounter the team you'll end up joining once again. In the last video, you defeated one of their grunts who ran off to tell the rest of the group of your battle. Impressed by what they've heard, Team Leader Loki or Team Leader Thor will offer you a place on their team if you could first prove yourself by defeating the Rock-type gym leader in the neighboring town, Julia. But these leaders are both quite charming and eccentric, as most cult leaders are known to be quite charismatic. Team Brain Leader Loki is calculative and cunning, specializing in Psychic-type Pokemon and special attacks. While he comes across as sporadic and zany, he shouldn't be underestimated. Always thinking 3 steps ahead of his opponent, he is able to outsmart and maneuver the strongest of foes. It's hard to gauge whether or not he really likes you, but he seems very upbeat and fun, so you want to leave a good impression as he's the type of guy you just instantly want to be friends with. Assuming you picked Pokemon Brain, of course. Otherwise, he's going to be your adversary, so you're going to have quite the challenge. Now, if you picked Pokemon Brawn, you'd be encountering Team Brawn leader Thor, who is an all-star athlete and warrior who overpowers his opponents with his fierce fighting-type Pokemon. While most people assume him to be a dumb jock, his brute strength, stamina, and headstrong determination make him a force to be reckoned with. Not only is he the type of guy most aspire to be, but he's just super chill. So if you picked Pokemon Brawn, you really want to impress him, whereas if you picked Pokemon Brain, once again, good luck because you're gonna have to go up against this guy. And in case it wasn't obvious, they were of course inspired by Thor and Loki. Not really from the MCU, believe it or not, because don't forget these characters come from Norse mythology, and this is a Nordic-inspired region, but Norse mythology also has strong ties to Iceland through the Icelandic Poetic Sagas and Eddas, which a lot of people are unaware of. So these characters and creatures are very big in Icelandic culture and history as well. A handful of them even originate in Iceland. And that's not to say there's no inspiration from the MCU versions, of course. But given the fact that these are modern variations of Thor and Loki just like the MCU ones, I know a lot of people are going to assume that's where most of the inspiration came from, and that's a mere coincidence. But I could see why people would jump to that conclusion, given the fact that these are once again modern takes just like the MCU versions. Whereas most depictions obviously wouldn't be wearing this kind of clothing. Not to mention, the MCU just does a really good job of representing these characters from Norse mythology. They got both of their characteristics and looks down pretty pat, so once again, there's gonna be some similarities. But I tried to differentiate them and give them a little bit of their own personalities within the world of Pokemon, and more importantly, the Fyrún Region, so they aren't just copy and paste. So there will be some minor differences, but the heart and core of these iconic characters will still be there, and I know it's probably weird to some people to have these characters have the names Thor and Loki, but once again, these are characters found throughout Norse mythology and pop culture. I mean, if the MCU, God of War, Assassin's Creed, and several other games can take these characters and fit them into their franchises and worlds, I don't see any reason why Pokemon could not as well. Not to mention, these are real Icelandic and Norse names. Each leader's ace is obviously the mascot legendary or divine Pokemon they worship, as they are merely the right-hand men, or vessels, so that the legendary can have someone wield them and unlock their true potential while in their powerful forge forms, which are both inspired by Thor and Loki's signature weapons from Norse mythology, by the way, as all the magical weapons from Norse mythology, as well as Vikings and Viking weapons, are what inspired the Forge Form mechanic in the first place, as I felt it would be the perfect inclusion to this region and its story and themes. While obviously privileged to more knowledge than you and the rest of the team, even these leaders aren't aware of the divine Pokemon's true intentions, as they blindly worship these deities. I'll get more into the rest of their Pokemon teams and where you'd battle both of these team leaders in the story later on in this video, as regardless of which version you'd play, you would end up facing off against both of these leaders. Also, if you're curious as to why the hero would join either one of these groups, despite having already been warned by their mother about what's going on with these two teams, the answer is simple: peer pressure. This is their first time out on their own, and they're meeting someone very charismatic that others flock to. Both of these teams are trendy right now for the teenagers in this region. And you are only 16 years old, and your mother told you not to get involved in any of this. The same mother who's the Pokemon region's professor, and despite having you grow up in her lab and around Pokemon, refused to give you a Pokemon until just recently. So for years, you were forced to watch others much younger than you be given a Pokemon by your mother and set off on a journey. So needless to say, after being sheltered by her for so long, it would only be natural for you to feel a little resentful and rebellious. Now, returning to the story, you'd once again, before being able to join your respective group, have to head down to the neighboring town and defeat the rock-type gym leader, Julia. This town is inspired by the picturesque town of Vik in South Iceland, which I will be visiting on my trip in the fall, and I cannot wait. When you arrive at her Pokemon gym, a couple members of the respective team will be accompanying you as witness. And as a result, seeing that you are with this team, Julia will treat you as she would any one of them, per Champion Odin's request, so she must use a Forge Form weapon in this battle, as all the gym leaders are required to do so when facing members of these two teams, in order to foil the Divine Pokemon's plans, so she will do exactly that. Now, this is one of the few gym battles that must be done at a certain point in the game. The rest are done in any order, but I'll get more into this and your battle against Julia and her Pokemon team in my next gym leader focused video. Anyways, after defeating her and returning back to Fruitafus Town, you'll be officially welcomed into either Team Brain or Team Brawn. But the team admin Einar or Gunnar will not be thrilled by this, as they seem to be intimidated by you and all the buzz you've created. The group leader, however, will give you your first task. After joining your team, you will be given a series of side quests in the region that you must complete on your team's behalf alongside the normal gym challenge. So this is kind of like the whole Team Star storyline in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Some of these tasks will be to recruit new members, which would be done by defeating an NPC trainer. Some require catching certain Pokemon, others require talking to NPCs and completing actual tasks or finding items. They all vary, and a lot of these are side quests, but after completing so many, you'd work your way up the ranks until you're eventually an admin, in which case you can order Grunts around, having them go recruit members for you to help you score points or bring you items. You can even give them a Pokemon you want caught, and after some time they may return with that Pokemon for you. Of course, this isn't guaranteed, especially on rarer Pokemon, but when it does work, it's a real time saver. You can even have some of these Grunts accompany you in double battles or even trainer battles to make them 2 versus 1. Of course, this wouldn't work in gym challenges or most boss battles, but these are just some examples of the added perks to accompany your rising position and power within this group. After your gym battle and being officially welcomed into your team, you'd encounter your best friend turned rival on the neighboring Blacksand beach, which is inspired by many of the beautiful Blacksand beaches in Iceland, and I will actually be visiting my favorite while there, the place I am most excited to visit because I just find them to be so beautiful. Here, the rival team will be looking for rare Pokemon, Shellskel, in a sea cavern on the beach. This Pokemon is based on an Icelandic folklore creature known as the Beachwalker or Shore Laddie, which is a total beast that is known to walk this beach, especially at night with its shell rattling. Obviously, I wanted to put my own Pokemon twist on it, and had its shell actually look like a seashell, and gave it some sea turtle and sea otter-like qualities as well, to make this kind of like hybrid like chimera creature. You'd even have the chance to battle this Pokemon as a mini-boss, as your task is to catch it for your team, as it has a powerful Forge form. It is then you find out that your best friend has joined the rival team, and been given the same task, which at this point in the story, for people who go in blind, this is kind of a big twist, and where things really get interesting. You're both eager to prove yourself, so neither one of you is willing to go back empty-handed. Of course, you'd first have to battle some of the rival team's Grunts on the Blacksand beach and in the sea cavern. This is the team of the Grunt you'd face while first arriving on the beach. While at first glance this team looks like the same as the team of the Grunt you faced earlier in the game, remember that was a member of your own team, whereas this battle is your first battle against a member of the opposing team. So it would be your first time seeing some of these version exclusive Pokemon. After entering the sea cavern, you'd face off against another Grunt, this time using another version exclusive Pokemon, before battling your rival deep within the sea cave where the prized Skellshell is located. For the first time, you'd have your first battle against your best friend turned rival as sworn enemies, with them having scrapped their Lamini from Route 1 in place of version exclusive Fyrinian Voodal or Fyrinian Natike in order to represent their new team, being the opposite versions version exclusive. I hope that made sense. Anyways, they claimed Lamini was too weak, which is out of character for them, as the friend you know would never do such a thing. They love all Pokemon. And just like you grew up in your mom's Pokemon lab, surrounded by Pokemon. so this would really have you start to question their character. They follow up with their new evolved starter Pokemon, and end the battle using the evolved form of their version exclusive, Grumpur or Fyrún, once again being the opposite of your version, now a Chillinx or Snowwarg. And this Pokemon would also be the Forge Form weapon they use in this battle, being a sword. So this would also be your first Forge Form battle against your dear friend, and with both teams watching and a rare Pokemon on the line, neither of you can afford to hold back. So this would be a very game-changing moment in the story. But after defeating your rival and the rest of the rival team, you'd have a chance to catch this Shellskull. I'd also recommend exploring this beach and catching some of the Pokemon found there, primarily of the Rock type, which is why the Rock type gym is right by this location, and Water type Pokemon of course. You'd also battle Grunts from the rival team in the early game as they're stealing crops in the nearby Loford Farmlands. Large, beautiful farming fields with a variety of farm-inspired Pokemon, both new and old, maintained not only by the people in the neighboring town, where the Grass-type gym leader is found, but the wild Pokemon that live there, as they work together in harmony to grow and maintain these crops that supply the entire Fyrún region. In this battle, these Grunts would use some new Pokemon you haven't seen up until now, such as Muley or Squirrel. After this battle, Elite Four member and Ground-type specialist Burner, son of the nearby Grass-type gym leader Burker, who runs the Loford Farmlands, is grateful that you helped save the crops until discovering that you're part of one of these teams, and assumes the worst of you, challenging you to a Pokemon battle. Now this wouldn't be Burner's full Pokemon team, but would offer a glimpse into his power, as he would use his Forge Form weapon, being a shield of his ace Pokemon Odloam. But enough about him, this video is about Team Brain and Team Brawn. And you'd even encounter random Grunts of the rival team as NPCs throughout the region. Defeating them really helps you climb the ranks. These are the battles that would have more diverse Pokemon types versus strictly psychic or fighting types, but would still focus on either special attackers or physical attackers. Your next team meeting would take place at your team's headquarters, which is by the large lake in the region, inspired by a real lake in Iceland. You'll also be able to encounter and catch a large variety of water, bug, and flying type Pokemon here, a handful of which being exclusive to this area. This lake is also the best place to catch a Resignat, a bug normal type Pokemon, based on Iceland's most prevalent insect, the noisy midge often found near lakes, ponds, or rivers. While you can come to this area as early as you'd like, this team meeting would take place in the mid-game, meaning after you've received your first 2 gym badges. The team admin, either Einar or Gunnar, jealous of the attention you've been receiving, is throwing you some dumb tasks at this point, totally wasting your potential. But one of them actually leads you to reunite with Ragnar again, as Ragnar happens to be related to both of the team admins who've always had a sibling rivalry with one another, each trying to pressure their younger sibling Ragnar into joining their respective team. But Ragnar wants nothing to do with either of them, as they are far more interested in fashion and are already running their own Pokemon gym under the disguise of Dragon Queen Fantasia, something their 2 older brothers are completely unaware of. In fact, their silly task they send you on is to hijack Fantasia's fashion show in order to use the platform to recruit new members of your team. So if they realize that they would be ruining something that their younger sibling worked really hard on, I don't think they'd be having you do this. Ragnar's dapper brother Einar is one of the admins of Team Brain, being one of the top academics at his academy. Einar is very studious and perceptive. These traits help him in battle as he is known to implement impressive strategies. So Einar, always feeling inferior to his brother's strength and athletic abilities, joined Team Brain to show his own abilities as an intellectual are just as valid if not superior. Ragnar's dashing big brother Gunnar is one of the admins of Team Brawn, being one of the best athletes at his academy. Gunnar's strength and stamina allow him and his Pokemon to easily overwhelm his foes in battle with an onslaught of impressive physical attacks. So Gunnar, who has always felt dumb compared to his book-smart brother, joined Team Brawn to prove that his physical abilities are just as impressive if not superior. So in reality, what these 2 brothers don't know is that all they really want is to prove their own worth. It appears that the rival team had the same idea to hijack the fashion show to recruit new members. Out of respect for Ragnar, you can't go through with it, but you would help Ragnar take down the other team, in order to help save the fashion show that they've been working so hard on. You'd also battle a couple of Grunts back in the capital city, in the form of a tag battle, using either Lunatone or Solrock in Brain, or Throw and Sock in Brawn, where you'd be accompanied by Ragnar, who will battle alongside you using their ace Pokemon Draginn. Afterwards, they will gift you their shiny Sthormur as a token of their appreciation for not going through with their brother's nasty plans to take down the show, as well as helping them stop the other team. They also feel that this Pokemon is in good hands and that you'd be able to have it meet its full potential, as they were unable to evolve it due to their indifference to both teams despite their brother's best efforts. For those of you who are new, Sthormur is a Dragon-type Pokemon with 2 version-exclusive evolutions, with Sthormur being Dragon Psychic for Pokemon Brain, or Valormur being Dragon Fighting for Pokemon Brawn. Each with their own Forge form, but since Ragnar gifted you a shiny, its Forge form would be shiny as well. However, after your tag battle with Ragnar, you would be challenged by the admin of the rival team, using a bunch of fully evolved Psychic or Fighting type Pokemon that you won't see used by any of the Grunts on their team. To reference the fact that they are related, I also wanted each brother's team to parallel each other to make it clear they have a lot more in common than they even realize. Each starts with a fully evolved version exclusive Gen 5 Monotype, followed by a Grass type 2-stage Mushroom Mon of their respective type, and of course each would also be using the Forge form of their ace Pokemon, one of Sthormur's mentioned evolutions, either Wisdormur for Pokemon Brain or Valormur for Pokemon Brawn. After all this family drama back within the capital city of the region, once again inspired by Iceland's capital city, you'd finally be able to face the Dragon-type gym leader Fangtasia, who wasn't there previously in the game, as the gym was locked. And Fangtasia will reveal their true identity not only to you, as you've inspired them to be their true self. They'll end up revealing it later on to both of their big brothers as well, right before your big battle, which they try to interrupt. This is another one of the 3 gym battles within the game that would have to be done in a certain order, which, as I'm sure you can tell, is only due to their locations on the map and their respective places throughout the story, as Fangtasia is the mid-tier representative, meaning they would have to be your 3rd gym battle within the story, as this battle is a follow-up to all the family drama that just happened. Both brothers are proud to find out that Ragnar has been a gym leader all this time, acknowledging the fact Ragnar didn't need anyone else's approval, but instead forged their own path, surpassing them even. So it's a touching little family reunion, and probably not the response Ragnar was expecting. But it is short-lived because after returning back to your team's base, upset that you disobeyed their orders, the admin of your respective team will challenge you to a Pokemon battle, using the same team they would have used back in the city if you were to have played the opposite version. So once again, you would get to battle a Grunt, an admin, and the leader of each of these teams in both versions. You just obviously face the opposite team a lot more in your respective game. The next big battle with the rival team would take place at the PokéCorp Oil Rig, where you'd be able to find and capture several poison and water type Pokemon unique to the area due to a toxic oil spill in the ocean. The initial oil spill years ago happened as the underwater drill, instead of finding oil, was destroyed at the bottom of the seafloor after coming into contact with a giant runestone, as its magic destroyed the drill and in turn released all the surrounding oil into the water. If you haven't figured it out by now, the runestone isn't only a rare evolutionary item only found in the Fyrún region, linked to the evolutions of some of its strongest Pokemon, but it's also crucial to the Divine Pokemon's master plans to conquer the Fyrún region, as it contains a mysterious power. This power is actually what's behind the whole Forge form mechanic, and when gathered in the Aurora Hedge beneath the region's dazzling lights, these Divine Pokemon can really make use of this power to conquer the region. And of course, in the midst of this battle between both rival groups, you'd face even more Grunts throughout the floating facility, as well as have another battle against your rival, with some additions to their Pokemon team, including Pikachu's new evolution using the runestone Gorochu, which will be the new Forge form weapon they use in this battle. After defeating them, I recommend healing your Pokemon, because if you don't, you've only got a limited time to do so, as you'll almost instantly be confronted by an irate Irma, the Poison-type specialist and Elite Four member of the region, a young activist who uses Poison-type Pokemon as a political statement to show just how potent toxic chemicals can be, as she's trying to save the environment. And your team's feud is only further damaging this area as it's caused yet another oil spill, so she will be furious to say the least. Now, this isn't her final team, but this would be a challenging battle, with her making the most of the poison status affliction and using a powerful forged form weapon to demolish your immune system. If you haven't noticed, you'd encounter each of the Elite Four members once throughout the story before you actually battle them in the Elite Four. But I'll cover this in a little more detail in one of my future videos. The final battle against the rival team would take place in this charming fishing town inspired by Iceland's iconic town of Húsavík. It even has a song written about it in the comedy movie Eurovision, which is absolutely gorgeous, and if I'm being honest, out of place in this goofy movie. Anyways, the rival team's base is located at the docks in a giant warehouse in town. After defeating the water-type gym leader Maria, and proving to her despite your affiliation with your own group that you have good intentions, she tells you where to find this warehouse and asks for your help to scare them out of the city once and for all. Now, while you can face her at any point in the story like most of the gym leaders, it would make most sense to wait till the end game to face her, not only due to the location of her gym and the team's headquarters, but because even if you defeat her and she shows you where their headquarters is located, your team won't actually be ready to strike till later on in the game. And you'll need to have a high enough rank to be able to order around your own team Grunts in order to pass certain sections in this warehouse. So this showdown will be a lot more like your typical headquarter battles in Pokemon games, in a facility with lots of transporting around various levels or rooms, hitting keys and locked doors, etc., as you not only have to face a large number of the rival team's Grunts, but rematch the team's admin Einar or Gunnar as well, with new and improved teams, including either Gudra or Dragonite. I wanted to give both another powerful Dragon-type Pokemon to not only showcase once again that these teams don't use Psychic or Fighting types exclusively, but reference their relationship to their sibling, Dragon-type specialist Ragnar, especially as they're proud to have found out that they're a gym leader, so it's low-key them wearing their pride and representing the family name. Team Brain leader Einar will use Gudra as it's a special attacker and purple, in line with the Team Brain colors, and Gunnar will use Dragonite as its orange coloring, and the fact that it's a physical attacker is in line with the rest of Team Brawn's Pokemon. Of course, they will still be using their Ace Dragon-type Pokemon and their Forge Form weapons. After this battle, at the end of this chapter, you'd finally face off against the rival team's leader, Loki or Thor. This battle would be extremely challenging as they not only have powerful Pokemon, but each have a legendary Pokemon as their ace, even making use of their powerful Forge Forms, making them that much stronger. And of course, both using their respective team's type and more importantly battle style. Loki has primarily Psychic types and special attackers, making the most of status moves and strategies, such as tricking you into thinking at the start of the battle that you're against the divine Pokemon Illruse with Zoroark's illusion ability. Whereas Thor's powerhouse team of fighting-type Pokemon and physical attackers can not only take hits, but they can deliver them, hitting fast and hard, leaving very little room for error on your part. After this battle, you will think you defeated the rival team once and for all, but obviously that's not the case. And shortly after, you'd go to the Aurora Hedge, where you'd battle your own team leader, and in turn catch the divine Pokemon you worship as you become the new team leader, as this divine Pokemon sees you as more worthy to wield it. If you haven't noticed by now, these divine Pokemon are calling the shots, and they talk Mewtwo style. As divine Pokemon is its own class of Pokemon I created in the Fyrún region, based on gods from mythology, with more human-like features mixed in with animal features. They're capable of having Pokemon teams just like Pokemon trainers. In this case though, instead of having Pokemon teams like the Loford divine Pokemon, they actually wield the trainer and their Pokemon team. Mostly so they can access their powerful Forge Form, as Forge Forms have to be wielded by human trainers. And after facing the Fyrún League, beating the Elite Four, and becoming champion, you would have one more final battle against your rival, who has since become the leader of their respective team in the climax. They have even acquired their own divine Pokemon, and would be wielding its Forge Form in battle, as your divine Pokemon are both trying to complete their plans to conquer the Fyrún region, and you two finally become aware of what's really at stake, and that you've been played this entire time. But I'll go more into this in the final video as I conclude the series, as this is the final battle, much like the rival Namor battle in Scarlet and Violet. However, this one will be quite epic and dramatic if I'm being honest, with a lot at stake, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as promised, I'll be going into all of the Fyrún region's gym leaders and their Pokemon teams, continuing the story of the Fyrún region and all of its locations and the Pokemon found there in the next video. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit that like button, Feel free to leave a comment down below to let me know which of these characters is your favorite and what you thought of the video. And most importantly, please make sure to subscribe to my channel to keep up with more content. And please make sure to go follow and support all of the incredible artists I commissioned to make this video possible. All of their names and pages will be linked in the bio below, many of which have their own amazing Fakemon regions, such as Trainer Matt, once again the real MVP of this video, as he did all the trainer artworks. So please go give him all of your love. Thank you so much for watching and take care.